Well, good morning, I guess, or good afternoon, or good evening, I guess, depending on really where you are. And I want to thank everyone for joining us on today's webinar. My name is Tom Robbins, and I'm with PlayFab. And it's a pleasure to welcome people to our continuing ongoing series of educational webinars. And these really were the result of us talking to game developers, being game developers, and realizing that there isn't a ton of education available that you can just kind of tune in and watch and learn from. And we honestly feel that's an incredibly important part of the community and helping to grow the community. So you always can take a look at the webinars that we have upcoming, and they're available at our website, playfab.com/webinars. Between now and the end of the year, we've got something like another 14 or 15 webinars that are going to happen. The series that you're on today is particularly exciting because it's part of about a 7 or 8 part series looking at how to use Unity and how to use PlayFab together. And this is something that a lot of people have requested, and based on the amount of people who've joined us today, I think it's incredibly important, and it sounds like a lot of interest that's there. So it's always important to have an expert present at these webinars, and it's really my pleasure to introduce Marco Williams. Marco is the head of our developer tools here at PlayFab, and also a longtime Unity developer. Marco has an extensive background in Unity and is quite honestly an expert in how to build games using Unity and how to integrate those with PlayFab. At PlayFab, Marco is also responsible for, he and his team are responsible for developing the integration that people are using. So I want to go ahead and turn it over to Marco, who's going to walk us through getting started with Unity and PlayFab. Marco, are you there?
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Again, everyone, welcome to this series, Unity and PlayFab Getting Started. My name is Marco Williams, and I've been a Unity developer for probably a little over 5 years, and I've developed a number of smaller game titles, and I've had the privilege of working on some larger titles as well. So today what we're going to do is we're going to show you pretty much what PlayFab is and how why is it not changing my slide? I'm sorry. Okay, there we go. So we're going to show you what PlayFab is and how to use that with Unity. So what is PlayFab? So PlayFab handles all of your game operations, everything from account management to storing your player data. A lot of times when you build a game, you want to do like leaderboards that are based off of your player data and statistics. And I mean, as a game developer, there are a number of functionalities. And Tom and I had this conversation yesterday. It was really good that we did. And it was basically there are a couple different types of game developers out there. There's game developers that want to build very small games like Infinite Runners and Match 3 and a number of other smaller titles that a lot of times they're just played offline or whatnot. And then you have the other spectrum of game developers that want to build like multiplayer games or MMOs or anything to do with networking or having tons of players and need scalability and that sort of thing. And so PlayFab kind of accounts for both of those. And so for your big giant MMO type of games, we have a cloud solution, we have automatic scalability, and we have a number of features like handling characters and player data and an economy to where you can store inventory, et cetera, et cetera. So then for the smaller games, though, we have features like analytics that help you track what your players are doing inside of your game. And that's really important to, these smaller games, is to know like about your player activity, how your player is, getting stuck in your game or whatnot. So we kind of have a lot of services that are available to everybody. And today we're going to talk about how to integrate PlayFab with Unity. So let's go next slide. So what is Unity? So Unity is a cross-platform, powerful game engine. It has user-friendly development. It's easy to learn. It has tons of tutorials. It uses C#. And this is just a set of tools to build games and apps. And there are lots of other game engines out there. Unreal. There's custom-built ones that are for ActionScript and Java. And today we're going to focus on Unity. But really, Unity is super powerful. It's super easy to use, and best of all, it's free. So you can download Unity from unity3d.com, and you should be able to get started with it. So what we're going to cover today is setting up PlayFab inside of Unity. We're going to make not just one API call, but we're going to make a series of API calls to log in, to create your catalog, and set up your items inside of the game manager, set up virtual currency, and then purchase those items as if you were a player. This actually comes with a little to-do list. So first thing we're going to have to do is sign up for an account at PlayFab. We're going to have to set up a catalog and create a store. I've already done some UI work, so we'll provide the examples after the series or after this particular webinar, and you can download and see pretty much everything that you're seeing here today. So we're going to set up that store in the game manager as well, and I'm going to cover a little bit about what the game manager is. As well, we're going to set up virtual currency. Then we're going to download and configure PlayFab and import the SDK in, and then we're going to start making our API calls into PlayFab. So let's go ahead and get started with that. And so I already have a project built in Unity. Actually, I didn't want to show you this yet. I wanted to bring up PlayFab. So here we go. So this is PlayFab. We're going to start off by creating an account. So I just click the sign up link. I'm going to go ahead and type in Marco plus demo1 at playfab.com. Put a password in, Skittles, and another password, Skittles. And sign up. So what's going on right now is it's setting up in the background all of your account information, and it sent me a verification email, so I'm going to have to verify that. I have that right here. So I'm going to go ahead and verify my account. I'm having internet connection issues. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, there it goes. So this throws us into our dashboard, and basically the first thing you're going to see is we don't know anything about your studio. So it's going to say unnamed studio, unnamed title, and you can go ahead and edit this information particular to your game title and to your studio. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but what I am going to do is kind of show you how to set up your game items. So we're going to flip over to the economy tab. There's a lot of stuff inside of PlayFab. So like I had said, we have a number of services that cover a wide range of things. I mean, you can store player data and all these other things, but we're going to focus on a very specific path today. So I'm going to click over into the economy tab, and I'm going to create a catalog. So I'm going to call this catalog. I should probably match what I had inside of my code. So let me do that. I don't remember what I named it. Let's see. Game. Okay. I think it was just item catalog. Let's just go with that for now. I can always change the code, right? So create a catalog, and we're going to set this as our primary catalog. So I'm going to go ahead and flag that. And what that does is allows you to version your catalog, so you can have, this is one version of it. Let's say later on you made changes to your catalog, but those changes might break your game. You can actually leave, one version of your game using a specific catalog so it doesn't break, and then you can go and create new items or remove items that may introduce breaking changes, but now it's not going to introduce breaking changes because you're pointing the new client to the new catalog and such. So I'm going to just call this item little potion, and give it a display name, little potion, and resizer. I've been on an Alice in Wonderland kick, so how about drink me to make me shrink? I like it. So I'm going to go ahead and save that item, and I'm just going to put two items in here for right now, but you can certainly have a catalog as big as you like. So that one's saved. Add a new item, and I'm going to call this one little cake, and little cake. And this is also a resizer. So these attributes that you're seeing, for the most part, they're a little bit arbitrary, with the exception of your item ID. And you see item ID is required, but you're not required to have a display name, an item class, or a description, or even put any tags. But a lot of this information, if you populate that about your particular item, you can display that inside of your game. So what I'm going to be doing is just using the display name and the description inside of our game, and I'll also be making use of the item ID to identify items in my catalog and pull that data. So I'm going to go ahead and complete this. So it's a little cake. What does that do? That makes you grow, right? So eat me to make me grow. How about that? Okay, so we have two items. So once we have items in our catalog, you could just pull straight from your catalog and display those items, but in order to make a purchase we actually need to turn these items into a store. So if I were to click over to the Store tab, um, there it goes. I think I'm having internet issues because things are acting weird. So I'm going to go ahead and create a store, and I'm going to call this Resizer Items. And that's going to be the name of, or ID of my store. So I'm going to go ahead and create that store. And this pulls off of the primary catalog by default, unless you tell it otherwise. And you'll see here I have my 2 items that I created. So I'm going to go ahead and add those 2 items to my store. And another thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to create some virtual currency. I mean, we could use real money, but for this particular demo, I'm not going to charge myself anything to do this. But so what we want to do is create some virtual currency for our store. So I'm going to go ahead and save the store. It says, check for duplicate items, ensure each item has a price for at least 1 currency. And I didn't set a price, so let me go and create a currency first. Add currency. I'm going to give this a short code of GO, and we're just going to call it gold. And let's say when you start the game, you're going to start with 1,000 gold. So now I'm going to come back over to my store and I'm going to see this gold tab, and I'm going to say, this item costs 10 gold, and let's say this item costs 20 gold. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I think we're all set up, actually. So what we've done so far, just to recap, is we've set up our catalog items, we've set up some currency, and we've set up a store that we can display inside of our game. There is something I would like to note on your catalog items. It's just such a powerful feature, and it's super handy. We're not going to actually cover it in code, but I just wanted to mention it. You can go into this attribute section, and you can add a number of key value pairs, custom data to any particular item. So catalogs are very powerful and can be a really core piece of your game. If you have items or inventory or anything that the player is going to purchase, you can store a ton of information that you can either tie into your game or tie into some other back-end service that you have, or a tool that you're developing, etc., and you can utilize this as a kind of a central point for storing data on your catalog items. And you know what, I did forget to do one thing, is to add my my default price for my items. So this is not needed because we set up the item, price in the store, but it's good to go ahead and just set a default for it. So I'm going to set the default price for these are 10 gold, and where's my little cake? There we go. And I'm going to set the default price on my little cake. I'm going to set that to 10 too, because we overrode that in the store. And we'll see that that override actually took place. So we're all set, and now we're going to flip over to Unity. So I'm going to bring up my slide, and let's go back to where we were. So we were, why didn't it go right back to where we were? Okay, so let's see what we did so far. In our to-do list, we signed up for an account, and we set up a catalog, and we created a store inside of our game manager. So that whole entire admin area was a game manager, and we set up some virtual currency. So now we need to download and configure PlayFab. And so just another recap, that this is all the prep work that we ended up having to do to start our development. And let me get out of this. And so now we're going to visit inside of Unity. So again, I'm just going to touch up on what Unity is. So Unity is a game development tool. What we're not going to cover is the ins and outs of how to use Unity. There are tons of tutorials out there that are great for getting started with Unity, walking you through pretty much every single aspect. You can hit them on YouTube. You can go directly to their website. Actually, I'll even bring up their tutorial area real quick. So if I go to www.unity3d.com, and if you click on the, maybe get Unity, I know they have them here, probably under the support, right? Under learn, duh. So they have a whole tutorial section. They have like project examples, and they have learning about how to use just the interface of Unity, what all of the different areas and aspects of Unity is. I mean, there's tons of material here, as well as if you just go to YouTube and just say search for Unity 3D, you'll get a good feel for how to use Unity. So, so in this series, what we're going to focus on is how to hook up this UI. So I went ahead and I just made a few UI components to start off with, and so what I have here is a login and registration panel. I have a store panel, and it's empty. And what will probably end up going in it is I made these little prefabs here. So if I drag this into my little content area, and then I duplicate this, I'm using Control D here to duplicate items, which is a nice little shortcut. You'll see that it automatically scrolls. Now this is some default functionality. I'm not doing anything special inside of Unity. I didn't go buy a UI kit or anything. This is all the default UGUI. It's basically built with UGUI, which is their built-in GUI system. So I'm definitely not doing anything super special here. I just, I pre-made this stuff for you guys. So I'm going to go and delete that out. And another thing that I'm probably not going to do, because we're only going to have about 30 minutes to get through all the code, is I'm probably not going to write all this code from scratch. So I already did a lot of the groundwork yesterday, and I put this together. So what we'll do is we'll start with the login example. I'll probably wipe out what I have, and then I'll recode it by hand, and then I'll just explain the rest of the code. So let's dive in. So we have this store view, and then there's one final screen here, which was the purchase dialog. So once we've clicked on buy an item, then we're going to want to pop up this purchase item, and then I made a thank you dialog, but I didn't really use it. I thought it would actually be better to send you back to the store so you can purchase another item. And then once we've purchased an item, we're going to jump back into the game manager, and we're going to be able to see that our player that has logged into our game actually has that item in the inventory. Now, I didn't build a whole inventory system here. There's really not enough time for that. But that could be a future tutorial where we're handling inventory and stuff like that. So, or a future webinar. So we didn't really need the thank you dialog. It's there. It's pretty cheesy. But I'll show it to you anyways, because it says your purchase is now complete. Okay. But we're going to skip that one. We're just going to jump straight back into the store. So let's dig into some code. So I've opened up here, and I've created some basic architecture. I'm going to clear all this stuff out real quick. And we're just gonna focus on this main login and reg panel. So where is this and how does this work? So I'm going to move this over into a different screen real quick. And here's my login and registration. To create this script, I kind of have a little hierarchy here in my project. I like to put things under my scripts. So, and you know, this is by far, if there's anyone more advanced in here right now, this is not, I'm not showing best practices. This is really a down and dirty way to get started with PlayFab. You know, a lot of this stuff can be abstracted out and, better architected, but for simplicity's sake, I just kind of like threw this together real quick so we could do this example. So, so what we have is a login and reg panel script. And for each of the panels, you'll see I've created a separate panel script. I've also created this window manager, and what the window manager does, we're not really going to cover it too much, but it just allows you to switch from window to window, and it hides all the other windows and pops up the window that you've called. I've created a pretty general error handler for handling errors. So error handling is such a big part of coding. And so when we make a call to PlayFab, when that comes back, a lot of times you want to handle those errors gracefully and do something specific, like pop up information to the user. And we're going to show a little example of that. But for this example, to keep it simple, I'm passing everything into this PlayFab error handler, and it's going to just straight out debug that right in here to my console. So there's a PlayFab data store, so I created this particular class so that we could have a centralized place to store information about our games. And there's a million ways to do this, but this is just a real quick, down and dirty. I've made a static class. And when I say store information, I mean store it locally to the game session that you're playing right now. All of this data is stored in the cloud somewhere, and so not somewhere, in PlayFab, and we're going to pull that information down from PlayFab and store it here in these variables. And then I have an item script, and this actually goes on our item. So a few minutes ago, I dragged this item into my store panel, and you saw that it duplicated and into the scroll view. And this item script holds information about the item, and then describes what happens when you press the buy now button. So that's just kind of an overview of the structure that we're going to be showing today. So I'm gonna jump right into the login panel, and so I have all of these. These are called metadata. So these metadata references, when I declare something public inside of a class, this is a built-in feature of Unity. It can take this information and then it puts it over into our Unity object. So if I drop this right here, I'm going to remove this script component, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this login and reg panel right here onto my object. Now you can see the object that is selected here is my login and reg window. So I'm going to go ahead and drag that right over onto it, and you're going to see all of these empty, it says none now because I haven't hooked anything up, but all of this information is the information that was here inside of our login reg panel C# script. And if you declare this public, then those elements, it could be a string. You see I've declared buttons, text, input fields. You can declare a number of items that are available. You can do enums, and then it'll become like a drop-down list. It's really cool. So now that I've wiped out the previous script that was on here, we're going to have to hook this all back up. So let's do that. So I I had created a login username field, so that binds to my form here. So this was my username, and then I'm going to drag over my password, and I had an error text. So the error text looks like this, but I don't want to drag the parent. So these are called game objects. So the parent game object was just my container, and it has my background. You see it just has an image, but underneath there's a text object. So that's actually what I want to drag over here. So I'm going to drag my text over to my error text, and then I'm going to go ahead and hide this again. And a login button, and then we're going to hook up the rest of this stuff. So I'm going to just go ahead and do that real fast. So email, password. Ooh, I'm putting place. There. Error text. And a bridge button. Got it. Okay, so now we're all hooked up again. I'm going to go ahead and save my scene. And we're going to flip back over to the code. Okay, so I'm doing a pretty simple binding to my my login button. So when you click the login button, I'm not doing any validation on the form field. So I'm letting the server decide whether or not this is an appropriate response or not. So, but you'd probably want to do some validation for your forms and that sort of thing. But when you click the button, so I have add listener, and I'm just going to pass it this function login. So I created this function login, and let's run through this real quick. So I'm going to wipe this whole entire thing out. Cut that out there, and then I'll just add this over here. Out of view. So this is what we're going to do. So when we log in, we need to get, we have to create a request object. So that's going to be the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to go var request, and let's even make it more specific. Let's call it login request, right? So login request equals a new login with PlayFab request. So how did that autocomplete? So let's look at that. So there's using statements. It's just part of C#. So I'm saying using PlayFab and using PlayFab client models. And this client models, if I right-click on and go to definition, you're going to see there's a bunch of different objects that we use to store results that come back from PlayFab. So we're going to create our login request, and then we're going to pass it our title ID. We haven't talked about title ID yet. So where does title ID come from? So, and we haven't really set a title ID. So we're going to have to do a little bit of setup first. So I'm going to show you that. So in our settings, inside of our game manager, we have a game title ID. And this title ID, it really is called A8F. Nice, okay. I think that's the first time I've ever seen a 3-digit one. So now I have our title ID. So that's where our title ID is. Then we also have like a PlayFab secret key, and this is for making server calls. This is a dummy account that I created, so if you see my secret key, it's not the end of the world. But generally, you don't want to expose this to the public. This gives them the ability to make calls on your behalf into PlayFab, and you probably don't want that for your game. So, but we're going to go ahead and take our game title, and I've created a So I created that data class that holds information for us. Why am I expanding that? Scripts. So PlayFab data, And you see I have a title ID here, and then inside of my awake. So awake, when something awakens inside of Unity, it's like the very first thing that runs. And then after that, there's an order of things, and you're going to learn this in your video tutorials when you learn more about Unity. There's start, and that happens next, right? So in my awake, I'm saying if there is a title ID defined, let's store that in my PlayFab settings. So that means I need to take this script, and this needs to reside on an object inside of our scene. So let's see where I did that. I went ahead and put that on the canvas, and you'll see, oh, I have an old title ID in here from my previous example. So I'm going to go and paste our new title ID here. And inside our login and reg panel, we need a title ID, so we can access that right off of PlayFab settings now. So PlayFab settings.title ID, and we also need to pass it a username and password. So we know that our object inside of our scene is hooked up into our login and reg panel, and we have a login username field and a login password field. So we're going to go ahead and make a reference to that. So login username field dot text and password. So this is login password field dot text. Okay, so now our request is built. Now we need to take this request and we need to send it up to PlayFab. So what we're going to do is PlayFab client API dot login with PlayFab, and we're going to pass it the request. So if my little tooltip here, it says it wants a login with PlayFab request, and then it's going to give us some sort of a result callback. So this is going to give us a login with PlayFab callback, and it's going to also pass us an error if there was an error. So we're going to have to handle all three of those situations. The first thing is to send a request over, so login request, and then I'm going to use a lambda expression here for the result. So I'm going to say result equals, and I'm not going to put anything yet, but like I said before, I have this PlayFab error handler class that I created, and if I just open that up, all it's doing is debugging. It's just outputting. It's a dump into our console of any errors that happen. So I'm going to also create a lambda again. We're going to get an error object back. But inside of my error object, I'm going to go ahead and pass that error object straight to my PlayFab error handler, and I have a method inside of there that says handle PlayFab error. So I'm going to pass it my whole entire error object, and that's going to dump anything that comes back as an error into my console. But also, if there's an error, we usually want to display something very friendly to the user so the user knows exactly what happened, right? And so inside of Unity, I had this little error dialog box that pops up right here. And so we're going to want to show that, and then we're going to want to set some information in there about the error, and then we're going to want to show that to the user. So I'm going to go ahead and go log in error text, run text equals error dot error message. Keep it simple, and then login error text dot game objects, because I need to get the parent, and you're probably going to ask me why, and then I'm going to set active on the parent game object to true. And I'm going to show you why it's the parent and not this object right now. So in our login error, we covered that this was just a game object and it had a background image on it, right? And our text is what we actually hooked up into our panel. So we actually want the parent object, because it's turned off right now, and we want to turn it on so that they can see the error message. So that is exactly why. What we're doing here is we're referencing to the game object, and then we're getting its transforms parent, and then we're going on that game object, we're going to set it active to true. Okay, so So now when we get a result back, if our login is successful, we want to do something. So I actually have this little bit of logic here that I pre-wrote. You pass a PlayFab ID and a session ticket, and what we're going to do is in our data store, we're going to start our PlayFab ID later and our session ticket. This session ticket is actually not that important. It's already being used on every PlayFab call behind the scenes for you. And so, but we're going to store it for right now. That session ticket is actually good for 24 hours, so it's probably a good idea for you to kind of track that locally in your client, because if you know, a user stays logged in for more than 24 hours, their session is going to expire and their PlayFab calls are going to stop working. So you need to relog them in at least once every 24 hours if they're on consistently. So you probably want to track their login time. We're not doing that here, but that's probably a good practice to do. So I'm also going to hide any error messages. If we're successful, I'm going to hide any error messages. And then I have this other function here that is going to go out and get the catalog. We're going to cover that in a minute. And then at the end of all of that, we're going to send you to the store. You're logged in successfully, congratulations, and now you can start playing your game, and then we're just going to make an assumption they went straight to the store. So I'm going to send that event from my Unity manager. So if we go up here, we're just going to make a call to the login register success. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And where does the PlayFab ID and session ticket come from? That comes from the result. So I can do result dot, and we have a PlayFab ID, and then we also have result dot session ticket. And this is result set that comes from the client model. So a few steps ago, I showed you, I right-clicked and went to the definition of the client models. Well, that's because that stores all the structure for the result set. And that's coming back and forth between the server, and it's pulling down JSON, and we're deserializing that information for you into usable objects inside of our SDK. So now we've login registered successful, and now I also have a register screen. We don't actually have any players yet, so I already have this hooked up, but let's just kind of run through it. We're doing the same old thing. Every PlayFab call works the exact same way. So we're building a request. It's a register PlayFab user request. I'm passing it the title ID. I'm passing it the registered user field text, so the username that they entered, the password that they entered, the email address that they entered, and on success, we're going to do the same exact thing that we're doing here on login. So once they registered, they're automatically logged in. They don't have to log in again. And then and on the error, we're doing the same thing. So if there's any errors while registering, we're going to show up the error message, and we're also going to just dump any errors straight to the console. So let's talk a little bit about, well, let's see if this works. Okay, so we're going to jump over here, and I'm going to go ahead and push play. And we're going to test out the error scenario. So test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I could make this a password field, by the way. You can simply go on to, this is a Unity feature, so you can actually set the type, content type. You can set that to a password, and it turns it into asterisk for you, so you can be secretive. But I'm not going to do that right now because I want you to see my password. It's highly secure. So we're going to go ahead and log in, test for that. And it says user not found. Oh no! So that means we got to register. So let's go ahead and register our user. So my username is going to be test. My email is going to be test@playfab.com. actually, you know what? Let's just use my email address, marco@playfab.com. And my password is going to be test12345. Okay, so test. I was just reading a comment, and looks like I had a misspelling here in the economy tab for my store resizer items. Let's see, make it bigger. Resizer items. It looks like, maybe it's just because it's so small and they couldn't see it. So, so I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Looks like it's spelled okay. So, okay, so we're logged in, and now we're at the store panel, and nothing happened. Where's our items? Oh my goodness. Okay, so no items showed up in the store, probably because when it's calling, making the call, I probably have a mismatch of like my example that I had created before with the new catalog name and whatnot. So, so let's go ahead. Oh, I opened Slack and I don't know why I clicked that. Well, I'm gonna close it. Close window. Okay, so let's look. Okay, so we're getting data from PlayFab. We're going to make a new request, get catalog items request, and this is my items catalog, and then we're going to actually make it so that we just define the request here. Now we're going to make our PlayFab call, get catalog items, and then once it comes back, so we're going to get the result back, and then we're going to store that in the PlayFab data catalog, right? So inside of my PlayFab data store, I have like a list of catalog items, and that's what gets returned back from our catalog. So we made a catalog request. We said get all the items. The cat.catalog returns that same exact type, list catalog of catalog items. And then immediately after we make that request, we're going to go get our store, and then we want to store our store item. So our store ID here is resizer items, R-E-S-I-Z-E-R items. Let's make sure everything matches up here. So we have items catalog, and let's see what we called it on PlayFab, right? So this is resizer items. Why is that not working? There we go. So we have item catalog, not items catalog. Okay, so there's one typo. And then resizer items. You know, I'm just going to go ahead and copy these values out. And paste this into here. Item catalog. So we need to replace it here as well. And I'm sure that there is another place, probably in my store panel. I'll go over this code in a minute. I'm just trying to check for any other places here. Maybe in my item. Yeah, resizer items. So let's replace that with copy and paste. Okay, it looks like that was the same anyway, so it's good. So here we're making a call. We're grabbing our store. We're making our store request. Then we're calling out saying get store items. And then we're going to take that result and we're going to put it right into our PlayFab data store. And then we're going to call our callback. So up here I have an action that is a callback. So as soon as all of that is done, and all that has to happen in order because I nested the results. So I waited for a result to come back, and then I waited for another result to come back, and then I'm going to do our callback. So after all of that happens, we're going to call to show the store panel. And then in our store panel, we have some very simple code on enable. It is a Unity feature. as soon as a game object starts up, you have awake, you have start, you also have on enable, and you have on disable. So and you have on destroy. So you have ways to destroy things, you have ways to do things at startup. This is one of the startup functions that are built in. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove every single item out of our store view. So if we look at our store view real quick, I know I'm going to probably end up going a little bit over the 1 hour mark here, but we're actually not too far off from being done. So here's our store window, and we're going to have a whole bunch of items populating in here. We don't want them stuck in there when I close the window. So every time this window gets enabled, we want to clear out anything that was pre-existing in there, because Unity is not going to do that by itself. And then we want to add the new items. So this is really handy because we're getting that information from the store. So if we somehow refresh the catalog and with new store items, we can actually pull those store items down. I'm not going to show you that enhanced functionality right now. We're just going to keep it simple though, and that's what I'm doing here. So I'm going to remove any existing items. And how am I doing that? I have a metadata reference to the container, which holds all the items, and I'm looking in its children items for anything of type item. And so that gives me an array of items that I'm going to loop through. So I go for each item in the items, we're going to just destroy it. And that is a Unity command. So then we're going to populate that container with all the new items. So first we need to get a reference to our item from the catalog. So here I'm looping through the store items, and it returns me an item, but that item is only going to just have the item ID. So if I was to go item dot, you see I just have the item ID and the price of the virtual currency prices of that item. We don't actually get all the catalog details of the item. We need to actually reference to our catalog. And that is why we stored that catalog and we cached it locally to begin with. So we went out and got our catalog so we can look up that information. So that's what I'm doing here on this first line. I'm getting a reference, I'm finding, this is a delegate, so I'm saying give me the item where the item ID is equal to the item's item ID. Say that 3 times fast, right? So the next thing, let's just make sure that it returned, because if it didn't find an item, then it's going to be a null reference error, and we don't want those. Those are bad. So we're going to just check for a null, and then we're going to instantiate. Now, instantiate is a Unity function. It allows you to take something from create a new object in the scene without actually, doing it in the editor. So you can pragmatically add things to the scene, just as destroy destroys those objects from the scene. So we have a reference to our prefab, and if you look here in our store panel, real quick, I clicked on item. That was my prefab. So to make a prefab, let's just do that for fun. I'll do it with my thank you dialog box, right? So if I wanted to make a prefab, I could just drag this item after I did all the work to create it and lay it out perfectly. I can just drag that right here, and then it turns it into a prefab. And then what I said was I want to store a reference to that prefab. So I took my item and I dragged it over to my item prefab. And then the item store item container, right? So I wanted to keep a reference to the container so that I could delete things out of it and add new items to it. So I'm storing the reference to that in my store panel. So now I'm going to take the, so I'm instantiating based off of the prefab that for my item. So I'm going to create a brand new instance of that item and then we're going to assign that item into the container. So the first thing was this is instantiates it, it returns it as a game object. I'm just making sure it's not null. Hate null references. Null references are bad. So always do your null checks. So then we have, we need to get an instance of the item script so that we can have reference to all of the things that we set up for that prefab. So in our prefab here, we have like a number of sub items, right? So let me go ahead and just drag that up into the content. And we have like our item image, we have our item name, we have the description, and we have our buy button, right? So all of that is hooked up into our item script through metadata. And in order to get a reference to that in our code, we have to get this item component script. So we're going to do that here. We're going to get the item component script. Then we're going to start setting all of our information. So I'm setting up our display name. I'm setting up our description. If you wanted to use one of those attributes on your catalog, pretty cool. If we went to the catalog and we went to like little potion and went to the attributes, and if here we define an image, and I said, you know, little potion image, we could actually have it look up inside of Unity and find that little potion image and then swap out the image. So that's a kind of a little enhanced feature of how you could use this attribute data to get extended information and use that inside of your game. I didn't actually do that in the code, but we could have done that right here, where I could have looked up an image. I just don't have a little potion image right now. So so now we're going to set the button text of our button to whatever the price is. So it says buy for X amount of gold, and that X amount of gold comes from the item's virtual currency prices. And here's where we're specifying GO, right? But there are PlayFab calls to go out and get that currency dynamically. So if you had changed it, I just have it hard coded here, but the best practice would be to pull down those currencies, cache them into your data store locally, and then we can reference to the currency that you pulled down. So if it ever changes on the server, then your whole entire game doesn't break, right? So that'd be good. So then we're going to store, let's see, what am I doing? Oh yeah, so now this is a very important part. These are actually two very important parts, is that we need to take that item. So we've created it. Without these two lines of code, it would just be in the root of your scene. So if we look at what the root of the scene is, right? So all of the main camera, the directional light, this event system, that's in the root of the scene. It's not even underneath the canvas. So as soon as we just create an object, it's just going to dump it right here into the main scene hierarchy. We don't want that. We want it childed underneath our parent container. So we're going to do store item, set transform, set parent, and we're going to set it to the store item container dot transform, and that is also a metadata that we hooked up. And then this last one, the best way I can describe it is that everybody's software always has bugs, and this is one that I feel is a bug, and it hasn't been addressed for several Unity versions. But basically what happens is you create a new item pragmatically, and then you parent it, and the scale of that item gets distorted and skewed for some reason. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I feel like it's a Unity bug. I've reported it, but the workaround, that's the good news. There's a workaround. So the workaround is to just set our scale back to 1. So just in case it changes for some reason because of this bug, we're going to go ahead and set it back to 1. And that way it doesn't like enlarge or shrink or mess up our UI in any way. Because as soon as it changed, we set it right back. That's how our catalog is being displayed right now, our store, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we're going to hide our store window, go back to our login, and we're going to re-log in with the user that we just created. So what was it? Test and test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Log in. We've logged in, and key not found. What did I do? Given key was not. Let's see. Login here. Windows Manager. Panel 35. Okay, let's see what's going on. I thought I closed Slack. There we go. Okay, so let's see what's going on. It was on store panel 35. It said that the key is not inside of the dictionary. But did we call this go? Did we not save our currency inside of our site? Let's see. Currencies. Let's save it again. It's geo currency code. Store. What? Why is it doing that? Delete these out. I don't know why I put that there. And 20. Save. Refresh. It's there. Okay, so this is showing the default. That's good. And then we have 10, 20. I'm going to refresh that again. I don't know why that was over in real money. Did I put it in real money? I can't remember, but I thought I put it in gold. Okay, well, whatever. So the bug was that I had no virtual currency defined. Apparently, I put it in the real money section, and so I just put it into the virtual currency. And so let's take a look and see if that fixed it. So test and test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Log in. Voila! Success. So we have a little potion and a little cake, and these are coming from our display name. So let me go ahead and bring up our catalog so we can make reference to everything that we're seeing here. So here's our little potion, and it says drink me to make me shrink. So that is coming across here. And it's saying buy for 10 gold. So we defined in our defaults, we said the price for little potion is 10 gold. That's good. And we said our price for our little cake is 10 gold, and this is 20 gold, which means that our store successfully overrode that information, which is fantastic. So then, and our virtual currency is showing up just fine because we are not getting an error anymore. So that is great. Now let's look into what happens when you want to make that purchase real quick. So we have another panel, which is the purchase panel. So when someone clicks that item, actually let's look at the item script real quick. So when someone clicks that button that I want to buy, we're adding a listener to buy item function. And so what we're doing here is we're creating a list of items to purchase, because you can purchase. You could make like a shopping cart and make it so that they selected 10 items in your catalog and they want to order all of those 10 items at one time. You can do that. I'm not doing that in this particular example. So what I've done is when you click the buy button, it's getting a reference to itself. It's building its list of items to purchase, and then it's going to pass that items to purchase to PlayFab and start a purchase. So that's what we're doing here. Is I'm creating a new list of item purchase requests, and so here I've added my one particular item. We know who we are because when we instantiated this item, actually I'm going to go ahead and look at this floor panel. When we instantiated this item, the first thing we did was we got a reference to this item, and oh, sorry, it's actually right here. So here's our store item, and we stored it right here in the store item. So we actually know everything about this item. And if we even wanted to, we could relook up in the catalog all the other details about this item. So, so we know who we are as a button, as a store item. And so we're going to pass that into our items to purchase request. So we're going to add item ID, and we're going to just say quantity 1. You could put multiple quantities. I'm just keeping it simple. And then we're going to build a start purchase request, and we want to order from this particular store. So you can have multiple stores, but we're just dealing with one, and then I'm going to pass all the items that I want to purchase. And since we only want to purchase one item, I've only added this one item to our items to purchase list. And then I'm going to send that request over, and we're going to get a start purchase result back. Now, this is kind of a little more advanced programming technique that I'm using here. I'm using a queue versus like a regular list. And the reason I'm using that is that I'm queuing up this purchase request, because what if they clicked this one, and then they clicked another one, and then they clicked another one, and they did all these start purchases, and we don't want that to be wonky. So I'm queuing up this request, and we're going to grab that from the queue. And every time we grab from a queue, then it pulls that first one out and leaves whatever else is in there still in that list. So it's kind of like a way to like pull something from the top of a stack, if you want to think of it like that. So so we're going to go ahead and like queue this start purchase request. If I look at my data store, right? So this is a queue of start purchase results, and basically this is going to have like all the information about the start of your purchase. So so we're doing that, and then we're going to send you immediately to our confirmation screen. We're going to say like, are you sure you want to purchase this item? So let's bring up the purchase panel, and I'll just show it to you again inside of Unity real quick. Let's hide this one, purchase dialog. So we have a purchase item, and this has like the item name and the information from the catalog, how much it costs. Then we're saying, are you sure you want to make this purchase? And confirm. So we're going to force them to say, yes, I'm confirming this purchase. So if I go to our purchase panel, you'll see I'm following a pattern here, right? So I have a panel, I have metadata on that panel, and I have information that I want to store about whatever I'm dealing with, and we always start there, and then I have some functionality below. So when this panel gets enabled, we're going to dequeue, and dequeue is like is popping off the top of the stack. So think of it as like a deck of cards, right, where every card is one of your items, and dequeue takes that top card and pulls it off and leaves the deck just as it is. And so now you have that card, an instance of that card, but it's no longer in the deck. So that's pretty much what we're doing here with the orders. So we're pulling that order that we just stored, And then we're setting, you know, our item ID, our cost. We're getting the cost from order, contents. So the contents is a list of all the items inside of your shopping cart, right? The thing is that I don't really have a shopping cart in this particular instance because we only have one item. So I just went ahead and said, you know, 0. Give me the very first, the only item in this list or array, right? So, and then we're getting our virtual currency price. So that's going to store the cost, and then I want all of that extended information from my catalog. So I'm doing that same catalog lookup that we saw in the store panel, and then so I'm assigning all of my metadata here, and then I'm adding a listener to my button for handle confirm purchase. Now I didn't actually complete this example, to be honest. That I didn't do the cancel purchase button, so the cancel purchase button doesn't work right now. But I do have the confirm purchase, and that's really what matters anyway. So when you click confirm purchase, what we're going to do is we're going to pay for that purchase. So we're checking to make sure that our order is not null. So null check, null check, null check, right? So I have a variable up here, it's start order purchase. As soon as this panel started up, it dequeued one of those orders and it put it inside of my local variable. And so I'm just double checking to make sure that that's not null. And then I'm creating a payment request. So I'm going to pass in, you know, the order ID, the provider name, and the type of currency to that. Now, I haven't brought this up yet, and I just want to take a second here because we're almost done with our tutorial, and I don't want to forget. All of this information is readily available at playfab.com/docs, and if you click on the API tab, and let's say, so we are dealing with the pay for purchase, right? So I'm just going to click on one of these things and I'm going to search the document, pay for purchase. So we can click on that and look, it tells you all of the request parameters that you can pass to this object, right? So we have a full API documentation, and it'll also tell you everything about the response that's going to come back. So the response come back, we know that we're going to get an order ID, we're going to get the status, and it's going to be of type transaction status as a string. So that means it's going to return one of these strings to you. I mean, there's all of this number of information. And the thing with payment is right now we're using a local provider, meaning that PlayFab is the provider for this particular purchase because you're doing it with virtual currency. But if it was real money, you would specify like PayPal here or Steam or iOS or wherever your payment provider is, so that so that PlayFab knows what type of payment transaction that you're doing. So we're just dealing with a regular, plain old local payment transaction here. So we're just using virtual currency, and so we're going to pay for that purchase. So our provider is title, which is, and then your title ID. So this will come out in our case like title, what was it, A8F or something like that, right? Okay. So and then PlayFab will know that this is a local transaction, and it also knows that it's going to be using regular virtual currency because we're telling it what type of currency. If this was a real money transaction, we'd have an RM here because we have RM is actually a default currency type that is built into the PlayFab system. So we're going to go ahead and make that. So we created our pay request, and now we're going to send that request, and we're going to get a confirm, basically a pay for purchase result, right? So here I have a little note. Here we should add to the inventory locally in the game and then confirm the purchase. But for now, we're just going to confirm the purchase, right? So what this is saying is that right now is a really good time for you to credit the inventory or credit the user locally in their inventory for this particular item, because you've already paid for the purchase. You got back a result set that said, hey, I paid for the purchase and that went through successfully. Now you want to grant that item to the player and put it in his inventory, or if they bought whatever they bought, right? You need to give that item to the player, and then afterward you need to tell PlayFab, I gave it to the player. So that's what this confirm purchase request is all about. So we're going to do a confirm purchase request, and we're going to pass in the order ID, and then we're going to send that request off to PlayFab, and your purchase is complete. And here I'm just nulling out, and then I'm just sending you right back to the stores so that we can see the items. So let's see how that all works out, right? So right now, I'm going to actually take you into the players, and here's our player. This is me. And if I click on it and I click on inventory, I have nothing in my inventory right now. And now we can go ahead and push play. I'm going to log in, test, and then test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Log in. And I'm going to go ahead and buy a little potion. And then it popped up my purchase confirmation. And you'll see little potion is here, my description is there, and the cost of my items is there. I'm going to go ahead and confirm this purchase. Yay! And I got a little debug message that says purchase was completed, and it took me back to my store. So everything is looking good on the game client side. Now let's take a look inside of our inventory. So I'm on my player already, and I'm just going to go ahead and refresh my inventory, and you'll see that my user has this little potion item inside of his inventory. That is fantastic. So, oh, that's not how to do that. Okay, so I wish there is a way to jump slides. Look at that. Okay. So we dove into Unity, and we covered like the bare bone basics. I already had a simple store UI that I created for you, and we displayed items from our catalog and from our store, and then we purchased an item. And so that actually concludes our today's webinar. And what we have is a whole series of webinars that we're going to be doing. We'd love for you to come and join us. Some of them are going to get more and more advanced as we, tackle, the best practices surrounding like player login, in-app purchases, using analytics within your game, and a number of other topics. And we would love for you to come back and have a look at what we're doing.
All right. Well, thank you, Marco. We appreciate you spending the time today. I appreciate everyone taking the time as we went over a little bit. We will definitely be posting this, the video as well as the sample, hopefully by tomorrow, which will be available on our blog at playfab.com/blog. And you can always find our videos for this webinar and all webinars we do at playfab.com/videos. And as always, we hope that you'll take the time and you'll join us for our next webinar. And you can go to playfab.com/webinars with an S at the end and go ahead and register. With that, Marco, thank you for joining us today, and everyone else, thanks for joining us. And I'm going to go ahead and close everything down. Thanks, Marco.